Welcome to the tutorial for Kung Fu for the NES. Very short game, but it can be a little challenging. I figured I'd bang it out just to get it up on the channel, another playthrough of a classic game. The first time, this was my second attempt, so it's not too refined, but the first attempt I got pretty far. And by attempt, I mean exhausting all the lives, because there's no continues in this game. But, yeah, this was the second attempt. And I had kind of a stiff ASCII pad controller that was making me jump for pretty much no reason. So I tried switching out controllers, and I think it helped a little bit. I had another ASCII pad that I think is a little bit less stiff. So I think that did help. The Saturn pad would have been better. The D-pad is, a lot better on that controller. But, yeah, for this guy, usually, if you get a jump kick in and then immediately start mashing your sweep kicks, he'll usually get jammed and killed in those kicks. So he's usually pretty easy. You want to take care of any enemies that are, going to interfere with you in the boss fight. But I usually just try to run as far as I can. Even when guys are throwing knives, I try to just keep skipping ahead because the game works after you walk a certain distance, the boss will appear. So keep that in mind. It's not about how many enemies you kill. You can kill enemies for a very long time. You could probably farm points that way if you wanted to, but I'm just showing how to beat the game. That's all I usually really demonstrate in these tutorials. You can kick those balls as they come down. Some of them will explode into fragments, like that. And if you're positioned right, you won't have a problem. You won't get hit. But you can also jump and kick them. Jump kick them to get rid of them. The snakes you can't defeat unless you kick the ball as it's coming down, the green ball. But you can only jump over it once the snake comes out. The midgets can be annoying because they will sometimes jump on your head, even if you, sweep all the enemies. And you see I died here. So the guy, he can be kind of tricky. You can't take that many hits in this game. And this is going to show about 1.5 loops because the game does loop over. So I figured I would just show my whole attempt, since I made it a little bit into the second loop. But again, this was only my second attempt playing the game, so I only spent like 18 minutes on the game. So yeah, it's nothing. It's not going to be anything spectacular. I haven't played in a while, but it is a great game that I like to go back to occasionally. I have a lot of nostalgia for the game as a classic, one of the old black box NES games in the original NES. But yeah, basically just try to get up close to him and you can, sweep the shit out of him. Just rapidly sweep his legs. Just be aware of the boomerangs. You can't hit them, so you have to jump over them or duck them as they're coming back or coming toward you. So yeah, pretty basic. It is a little tricky, though. It can be a little tricky. I remember I used to die on the second stage sometimes. Especially when I was younger, I wasn't really that good at this game. So I know it can be tricky. It didn't give me a lot of trouble this time. But I do remember struggling with the game a decent amount, getting pissed off when I was younger. Same thing here. You're just going to mostly, I like to, sweep kick most of the enemies because it has a good reach. So I find that the most effective. If you want to get more points, you can punch the enemies. You get twice as many points, but, and it's useful because you can earn 1-ups through points. So if you want to, do an endurance run, you may want to, punch more enemies. See, and this guy got me. He does massive damage. He can be tricky. My only strategy for that guy, honestly, is I usually just start off maybe with a jump kick to his face, and then that gets me close into him, and then I just keep abusing the sweep kick, mashing the sweep kick, which is basically just you hold crouch and you just keep mashing the kick button. And he'll get jammed up in there usually and die. But, sometimes he still gets me even when I do that, so I don't have a good consistent method for him. But, it does work most of the time. Occasionally it doesn't work, but I think most of the time it's pretty effective. There's really no skill involved with the way I fight him. I mean, I don't dodge anything. I just start off with the jump kick and then trip kick him. You see, I didn't get hit on that run, so that's when it goes well. There's probably a better way to play all these guys with, a more consistent method for people who like to do, multiple loops of the game and stuff like that. But if you're just trying to beat the game one loop, you really don't have to be an expert at this game to get the, to beat it once. And that's all I usually try to do. I'm not usually the type that tries to do multiple loops or go beyond beating a game unless I want to beat a game on like the hardest setting. I like to do that a lot, but that's mostly newer games had those extreme modes and stuff like that. A lot of old games, it was just you beat them and that was it. And Genesis games that had harder settings, even in Super Nintendo games, usually it was very minor. Like if you put it on hard from normal, you notice a very, very small change in the gameplay. You know, it wasn't like an extreme jump or anything. But the newer games have adapted that. For this guy, what I usually do, and I barely beat him this time, but he's the hardest guy by far, and always gave me a lot of trouble when I was young and stopped my progress. But what you do with him is I try to get as close to him as I can, dodge his magic. If I can, get close to him and just punch him in the face. Always punch him in the head. And, crouch and punch him in the head and just keep doing it. I try to walk forward as he's moving because he'll try to get away from you by disappearing. Very annoying. But if you move forward with him and keep trying to punch him in the head, you should get him eventually. That was all I did. The final boss is extremely easy. I think he did kill me once, if I remember right. But he's extremely easy, though. I mean, as long as you don't have other enemies fucking with you, while you're trying to fight him. But all you got to really do is get somewhat close to him and just start doing your sweep kicks. Eventually, he'll just walk into it and kill himself. He'll just keep getting hit until he dies. The AI is not good in this game, so there are some cheap tricks on the bosses. If you don't know that, he could be tough because he mimics a lot of your moves. And, I'm sure he could be kind of tough to fight without doing that. But that's always how I dealt with him. See, when you get close to him, I got too close. I tried to trip kick him, but I didn't, I haven't played in a while, so I didn't remember that I should have kept a little bit more distance because he's dangerous. So now you'll see how to do him the right way. Yeah, I thought this would be a cool game just to throw up. It was just a quickie. I just banged it out last night and was like, fuck it, I'll just, make a tutorial out of it. I can kind of explain a little bit of it, even though it's, pretty self-evident, but I thought it'd still be worth it because it is a great game, a simple game, but it's a lot of fun. It's only like 5 minutes long, but it can be pretty challenging, especially if you haven't played it before. But yeah, so I just get within a decent little range of him so that he's provoked enough to walk forward. Because if you don't get close enough, he'll stand there like an asshole and he won't come close. So you got to get just close enough so that he starts to walk towards your trip kick, and then he'll just get jammed up in there. So you'll have to find that. You may want to use save and load states to practice the bosses. I mean, I would recommend doing it. I didn't do that this time because I'm somewhat familiar with the game. So yeah, after beating the game, I decided to do a second loop. It gets harder each loop. And next to that dragon icon on the top of the screen, it shows how many loops you've completed. So now it's going to say 1 because I completed 1 full loop. But I mean, technically that is beating the game. But this is like an old arcade game where, it wasn't really about beating the games. It was more about points. So the games would just keep looping indefinitely. But I would consider that beating the game. It does at least have an ending. A lot of old arcade games didn't even have that. So it gives you some closure that you beat it. Some arcade games I just had to write down that I beat them because I beat all the unique levels, and that's how I would determine if I beat a game or not for some older ones. I had to make my own rules because I write down games to beat them, but some games it's not clear. Some of the old games are not clear if you beat them. So I have made my own rules and stuff that I've actually made a document of rules that I pretty much adhere to when I'm beating games and listing them. And I always, in my notes, list how I beat a game and things like, details like that as well. So it's not, I don't just write down the name of the game anymore. I write down, how many levels I beat if it's an arcade game. Because I might have been on like the 3rd loop if I kept playing, But yeah, it's not that much different on the 2nd loop at least. I mean, it's just faster. It just feels, it feels a decent amount faster. And you got more of these balls and shit dropping down. So it's, it's just kind of like a faster version of what you already played. So if you got the basics down, you're just going to have to react a little bit faster, that's all. I probably would have completed the 2nd loop, if I didn't die on the magic guy. He's the hardest fucking guy. I mean, if I didn't die on him, because I got good practice after doing the 1st loop, I pretty much had a good idea of how to fight all the bosses after that point. So, because remember, I was just picking this game up again, so I hadn't played in a while. So, like, had I beat the magic guy, I think I would have probably been good for at least completing the 2nd loop. But yeah, that was close. See, it starts getting real close. It's definitely harder. It's considerably a little bit more challenging. You know, it's faster. You can die a lot faster. But it's not that much harder than the first loop. I've seen a few loops being played before, and it does get really fast. It definitely gets harder. So it is a cool game to play for points if you just want to play an arcade game that repeats, you know, for points. It's definitely a classic game. I never played it like that, but, you know, since I was already playing, I don't really like to commit suicide, so usually I'll just play until I exhaust all my lives. Yeah, same thing here. I mean, these guys, the only danger is these midgets that will jump on your head sometimes. It seems random, and I don't know how to prevent it. Luckily, it doesn't do a lot of damage. The knife guys, of course, are the most dangerous, I guess, but a lot of times I'll ignore them for a while and deal with the ones in front of me, but a lot of times, I mean, you can go back and kill the one in the back. It's probably a good idea to do that, but a lot of times I'm fucking stubborn, and I usually let the guys survive. I guess this time I decided to take him out because he was annoying me. But so yeah, I got hit once by the boss this time, which could have been, you know, I should have been dead because I have like no life. But I do end up making it to the magician. And like, you know, whenever I play this game, the magician is always a potential, you know, run killer. Even now, because I'm not that good at the game, like I said. So the magician can be the one that usually ends me. I usually get at least to the magician, but once I get to him, he's a problem. There's a predetermined pattern to these wasps. So if you practice it with save and load states, you'll know exactly where to move, where to punch. You can ignore them if you want. I ignore most of them, but that's because I figured out the path pretty quickly for them. So they don't do anything random. So you can memorize that. It's very easy. The bosses may be a little bit more random than the actual enemies. You get stuck. See, you get stunned and then you can't move. It's very weird. I think he does a move that stuns you in place because the buttons don't respawn for like a split second. And it's enough for you to get killed. So that's what makes him hard. So yeah, he's a tough boss. But yeah, thanks for watching.